Well, I'll be honest, guys. When I first heard that two YouTubers were making a feature-length horror film, I was skeptical to say the least, but I gotta hand it to them. This was hands down one of the best horror movies of the entire year. Yeah, apparently I bought fake hands for this review. I don't know. What's going on, everybody? I figured with October right around the corner, we could get an early start on the horror movie reviews. So today we're going to be talking about A24's Talk to Me.
Put your hand on it. Now say, talk to me.
And if you know me, you know my general thoughts on A24 as a studio. Like, they can make some of my absolute favorite films like X, Pearl, Everything Everywhere All at Once, a few of my favorites from last year. But then they can also put out this overly artistic, pretentious movie like Men from Alex Garland.
That's it? That's the best you got?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
But in this case, A24 is more just like the backer or investor, so these guys could get their film launched. And from what I understand, there are a couple YouTubers by the name of Raka Raka or Raka Raka. Now, I'm not familiar with their content, but they do have a huge following. And from what I understand, they primarily focus on like horror comedy shorts. But damn, I gotta give them credit. They blew the doors off this one. And what I loved about Talk to Me is it takes a subgenre of horror that is way played out and a subgenre that I'm just not a big fan of in general, and it puts like this unique twist on it that makes it fun. This is the first time I can think of taking like this supernatural possession element and actually having the characters within the story like enjoy partaking in it. With every other movie in this subgenre, this is kind of something that's happening to people without their control, but in this movie, these people are literally inviting it in. This very much feels like an allegory for drug use and using drugs with friends. You have like the party environment, you have this group of kids doing it together and laughing at each other and recording each other, which is what kids do now. Which, by the way, never record that shit. That's incriminating. I actually think it was James from Dead Meat, who needs no shout out from me, but I think it was James who made the connection that this very much feels like the early 2010s when Salvia was like a big thing going around. And if you're not familiar, Salvia is pretty much like this plant that you smoke just like weed, except it makes you like trip out for 90 seconds, 2 minutes, and then you're right back to normal. I mean, not that I would know, I had friends tell me. And to dive even further into that point, this is what the movie does so well, is making Mia this sympathetic character as she's dealing with this emotional trauma from losing her mother to an apparent suicide. And that compels her to try something dangerous, like using drugs, and it feels great, so she wants to keep doing it, like even talking her friends into trying it. And then, of course, when something bad happens to one of them, that just causes her to fall like deeper into this state of using, if you will. And as a result, she loses all the important people in her life, all the people she cares about. And as somebody personally who has dealt with a lot of addicts, between friends and some family members, that message really hit home for me. But at the same time, Sophie Wilde, who plays Mia, really does a great job of just making this a layered, nuanced character. Like, she's not just this perfect person that you automatically root for. She has faults. She's sometimes selfish, she's sometimes a shitty friend. She does a couple things in the movie that make you go like, that's kind of fucked. Like, there are qualities about her where it's like, she's not a great person, but that works so well because it makes her feel real. It makes her feel human. Sometimes it's just so obvious that characters are written for us to root for them. And while I did find myself rooting for Mia, she's not perfect. Another thing I loved about the movie is that it avoids all these tropes that we as horror fans have unfortunately become accustomed to, and tropes that have just plagued recent horror movies. It's not filled with cheap scares, it's not filled with jump scares. Everything here feels earned. It's more like building tension as opposed to just a quick jump scare that doesn't really scare you, it just fucking annoys you. It doesn't feel like a movie where you're like, yep, saw that coming, yep, saw that coming. There is almost none of that. To be honest, aside from a few moments, I wouldn't even say this is like a scary movie. This is more about tension building and disturbing imagery and its unsettling nature, it's unnerving, which is awesome because they knew what tone they were going for and they crushed it. Like, if I just judged horror movies by how much they scare me, I wouldn't like about 99% of horror movies. The movie just nails its tone, all of the characters are great, but especially Sophie Wilde as Mia. It's masterfully directed by these twin brothers, and thankfully I'm not the only one that feels that way. This movie has been so wildly successful in the box office, and because of that, for the first time in a long time, I'm truly excited for the future of horror. This right here is the proof of why you don't need big studios making big budget horror movies, because you just get more of the same. Instead, give some of that budget to these independent artists with their visions and watch as these original concepts pour in and horror fans will just throw money at you. Believe me, we will give you our money for some original ideas. Hollywood in general is dying for some originality. Now's the time. And then also, I don't want to give away any spoilers because if you haven't watched this movie yet, rent it now, watch it immediately. But it has one of those endings that just leaves your jaw on the floor. Like, I was in the theater and I just had to sit there for a couple minutes while the credits were playing to really take it in. Not because I was waiting for some post-credit scene like an MCU movie. I just truly needed a few minutes to sit with it. Now, I will say, since the movie, there's already been news of a sequel greenlit. It's called Talk to Me. Cute, right? But they've already announced a sequel. I don't necessarily know how I feel about that. And don't get me wrong, I love this movie, I love this experience, so I'm gonna be there day one for that sequel. If I had it my way, I wish these guys would make another original horror movie before they do a Talk to Me sequel. But like I said, I'll still be there day one, and hopefully I'll love it just as much as this movie. This right here is the wave of the future in horror. Not The Nun 5 back in business, not The Bride of Annabelle, but fresh, original concepts. So I love this movie for the experience I had, but I also love it for what it's hopefully gonna do for the genre going forward. Guys, I had a lot of fun with this one. Is fun the right word? Yeah, so overall, I had a great time with this movie. Haunting imagery, disturbing, unnerving, unsettling, great performances. I'm gonna give this, well, not a 10, but take away a thumb and a half. I'm gonna give this an 8.5 out of 10, and if you haven't seen it yet, you definitely need to go check out this movie. No, wait. But that's gonna do it for my review of let's have the hand. But that's gonna do it for my review of Talk to Me. As always, let me know down in the comments, what did you think of this movie? Would you consider it one of your favorite horror movies of this year? Or did it just not work for you? How do you feel about the upcoming sequel? That's something I really wanna know, so please leave that down in the comments as well. While I have you, me and two friends do a weekly pop culture podcast called Culture Shocked. Links for that will be down in the description as well. And as always, if you enjoyed this review, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing right over here so you don't miss any future content. Yeah, guys, I bought these hands. I'm gonna use them, okay? And as always, we'll see you in the next one. I shouldn't do this, right? I'm gonna do it. Talk to me.